It seems like here lately, the chicken craze is at an all-time high. Everybody's got chickens now. Everybody's selling eggs. Everybody's got incubators and hatching birds, and you see it all over Facebook, on Craigslist, driving up and down the road. It's just chickens are popping up everywhere. And I'm going to explain in this video how in just a few months, in the spring and early summer, I've made around $5,000 with birds, selling chicks, selling pullets, selling eggs, things like that. Things that I'm going to be doing anyway, so might as well try to make some money off of it. And I made a vow this year I was going to hit it really hard and hatch out as many as I could, sell as many as I could. And you know, I consider 5,000 in a few months a win for just messing around in the backyard with a bunch of birds that I was going to be doing anyway. So in this video, I'll kind of go through how it worked for me this spring and summer, and just kind of how I operate here on my small backyard. I mean, I don't have a big operation here. My house sits on 1.5 acres roughly, and I've done everything right here for the most part. So I'll go through a little bit and explain that. I'm going to start by showing some of my pens and some of I have grow out pens, I have adult birds, everything. Like for example, this is a little grow out pen behind me here that I use. I use this when the birds are too big for the brooder, but not quite big enough for the coop. It's just kind of a little in-between pen. I keep around 15 to 20 in here at all times. I try to time it out where when they're coming out of the brooder, these are coming out of this grow out pen and going into the big coop. But I'll start off by showing you my pens, and then my incubator, and we'll talk a little bit of numbers too with it. All right, I'm gonna start off with this pen. This is my barred rock pen. I have 6 hens, 1 rooster in here. There's a couple that are broody in the little coop part there, but they're good layers. They sell really well for me. So that's that pen. And then over here is my Wyandotte Bantam pen. Right now I just have a pair in here. I have some more grow outs that are going to go in there when they're a little older, but there's that Wyandotte pen. And then of course we have the call duck pen that I've had a video on. There's actually, if you look, there's actually a mama with some babies in there right now. If I can, it's 5 babies she hatched out, but yeah, there's that. And then this is my little grow out pen. These are a bunch of grow outs. When they come out of that pen I just showed you a minute ago, they go in here. And right now I think it's about 13 or 14 in here. I got a few different breeds. There's some of them Wyandotte. There's a Splash Wyandotte. Like I said, they go in here until they're big enough, you know, until they're mature, or I'll sell them, you know, as soon as I can tell if they're pullets or not. I've sold a bunch that way this year too. There's a little modern game Bantam. But there's that. Here's another pen right here that has some barred rocks and Rhode Island Reds. So out of this pen I get black sex links out of the barred rocks over the Rhode Island Red, and then of course Rhode Island Red with those hens there. It's, let's see, 5 Rhode Island Reds and 3 barred rocks in here. There's my Rhode Island rooster. So there's that. So I get, you know, I get anywhere. Back during the spring before it got too hot, I was getting 8 eggs a day out of here. This pen over here is another grow out pen I got. But this is mainly for birds that I'm gonna keep like next year. Next year, those will be my breeders. I'll swap out my barred rock mature hens with these young ones. These come from a different bloodline. I made a trade with somebody, and that's just a random white leghorn rooster that I've hatched out that I'll keep for a little while. But yeah, they'll be my breeders next year. They'll be my breeder barred rocks next year because like I said, I'll swap them out. Over there in that dog kennel is just another grow out pen, but I got some ducks in it right now, but it's really nothing special in there. That's pretty much, like I said, my pens. I just showed you that's my pen, my little grow out pen right there. And I do have some rabbits, but that'll be for another video. Well, now we'll go in and I'll show you my incubator and how I got my incubator and brooder set up. All right, so this is my little incubator and brooder set up down here in my basement. This is the Hatching Time CT120. It advertises it holds 120 eggs, but if you're mixing Bantam eggs in there too, you can get more than 120. I have a pretty good hatch rate. I've never broke it down to give an exact percentage, but I'd say it's over 75. Very good hatch rate. I really like this thing. I can do a review on this like I done on the Amazon's cheapest, if some of you guys are interested. But this thing's pretty much been running nonstop since February. That's what the inside of it looks like. There's actually some chicks in here right now that have hatched in the last few hours. I got some quail eggs in here now. If you're doing quail, you can fit a bunch in here. But anyway, that's all that is. You have them in here until the last 3 days, and then you move the eggs over to a tray like that. But yeah, that's that. And once they hatch and they're fluffy and everything, they go into these brooders right here that I'll show a little closer up in a minute. But I've hatched out around 800 this year out of this thing. Like I said, it's been running non-stop. I normally didn't. Sometimes I would load it all up at one time because it's 4 racks right here. Sometimes I would load all 4 racks and hatch around 100 or so at one time, and sometimes I would just load 1 or 2 racks, wait a few weeks, load another rack. That way I was hatching out almost every week, just depending on how many I got, how many eggs I had. But I'd go collect the eggs from out there, whip them in here. I have a clipboard where I would write down when the hatch day was and when I needed to convert them over to the little baskets. But yeah, that's that. Like I said, if y'all want me to do a review on this thing, I can. It's really nice. But now we'll take a look at my brooders. So here's one of my brooders. I have 2 of them. They're the exact same right here. Just a couple I made, nothing crazy. They're about 4 foot long, 2.5 foot wide. They hold quite a few birds. I got some little Wyandotte Bantams in here right now. I just hatched out quite a few of them earlier this week, but that's all there is to them. There's nothing in there right now. I'm letting it dry out. I just cleaned it. I'm gonna put some birds that are in the incubator now in there. But yeah, they go from the brooder right there, the incubator right there to in here. And while I got the camera in my hand, I'll show you some birds that just hatched out of here. With some black sex links, some barred rocks, and some Wyandotte Bantams in here. But we'll go back outside now. And I'll talk numbers a little bit. Alright, so back out here to this grow out pen. Like I explained a little bit earlier, when the birds got too big for the brooder, the ones I didn't sell, they would come out here into this until they were big enough to go out to the bigger grow out pen. But I'm not going to talk much more about this. I explained this earlier. Let's get down to numbers now, since this is really what this video is about, is how you can make money in your backyard off of these birds. I sold mostly everything off my Facebook page or off of Craigslist, and then I sold right much at the local Amish auction as well here in Virginia. I hatched out about 800 birds this year, 800 chicks, and then that's not including call ducks, but that's just chicks. And the Rhode Island Reds, the Barred Rocks, and the white leghorns, because I did have a breeding flock of white leghorns. They sold at $5 each. My black sex link pullets chicks sold at $8 each, and I didn't show you my Brahma pen. I have a pair of Brahmas, blue partridge Brahmas, but they sold at $8 each as well, each chick. I would keep some. I think I kept back about 30 or 40 this year. Grew them out in here until I could sex them confidently. The barred rocks, you can really tell once they get about 10, 12 weeks old. You can really tell. And I would sell them as pullets for $15 each. Like I said, I've done that for probably 30 to 40 birds this year. And as far as the auction goes, I would go about every 2 weeks. My work schedule allows me to go to the auction every 2 weeks. And whatever didn't sell in that 2-week period, I would take to the auction. And earlier this year, auction was bringing crazy prices. Some of my Brahma chicks, I took like a dozen one time, and they sold for $15 each. Some of the barred rock chicks sold for $7 to $8 each. I was actually, for the most part, they were bringing better prices at the auction than they was me just outright selling them. Looking back, I should have took more to the auction, but it is what it is. I took hatching eggs that didn't sell to the auction. Sometimes they sold upwards of $20. I had a 6-pack. I know one time this year I took a 6-pack of call duck eggs, and it brought over $30. So, but sometimes like the barred rock eggs, they didn't go but maybe $5 or $6. It's a gamble when you go to the auction, but I'd rather take it there and let somebody else get some use than they just go to waste. I sold some mature birds at the auction this year from last year's breeding stock that, I mean, they sold for crazy prices. They sold, not those white leghorns, the hen sold for $30 to $40, and I think even the rooster brought $25. So prices were just crazy. But most of my selling was done on Facebook, off my Facebook page, or I do advertise on Craigslist as well. But I made right much money at the auction too. So that's pretty much how I done it this year. I mean, you've seen what I had. It wasn't, it's nothing huge, it's nothing fancy. It's just out of my backyard, and I mean, I got to pocket a little money, helps pay for feed. I used that money to upgrade my call duck setups, and that was great. I'm probably gonna end up building another one of them. But yeah, that's pretty much how I done it. If there's anything you want to see more in depth of, maybe like my incubator or the hoop coop pens that I do have, anything like that, just drop a comment and I can maybe make another video on whatever y'all want.